My name is Christina Gamoda, and sometime this year I attended a meeting where a poem was being talked about, and I did not know what this poem was all about. And with the poem, there was a very simple red puppy that I was very familiar with, but yet I could not understand what the connection was. So I decided to do a little bit of research, and as I did the research, I became very much interested in doing something with it. And at the same time, there was another project going in town, and that was to honor the 100-year celebration of the end of the war. And I asked one individual, who happens to be my husband, is anybody doing anything for the veterans? And the answer was no. So I thought that perhaps it would be a very important project to have something for the veterans. And I decided that I was going to approach friends and see whether there would be an interest to help me to make these puppies. So I did have in mind a workshop, so there will be more than just one person. And meanwhile, I kept looking for more and more information, because I realized that the more information I got, the more of this project was becoming of interest to me. And so what I realized was that there were three individuals involved. One was a physician, a Canadian physician, who had gone to Europe, to Flanders, and on May of 1915, his best friend was killed. And it was very difficult on him. He buried his friend that evening. The burial was done in the evenings. And the following day, he went to the site where these unmarked crosses were. And between those unmarked crosses, there were these simple, very red flowers that were blowing. And he wrote a poem. But he was not pleased with the poem, and he crumbled the paper and threw it. This was being seen by a soldier, and the soldier picked it up and showed this to his commander, and the commander took it and sent it to London. And in London, one magazine company rejected, but the other one did not, and the name of that magazine was Punch. So the poem was published in December of 1915. I would like to read you a poem. In Flanders Fields by John McCrae. In Flanders Fields the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, fell down, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch, be yours to hold in high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields. At the same time, there was a woman in this country by the name of Moina Michaels, who had visited Europe. And as a matter of fact, she was in Flanders in 1914. She had relatives who lived there, and she also was in France. And she saw the war, the ugliness of the war. When she came back to the States, she was rather concerned what was going to happen to her students, because it would be the loved ones who probably would be going to war, including some of the parents. And nothing was happening because our president had not declared war. But when our president declared war, she realized that she really wanted something special to do. And so she wanted to enlist, but she was over 40 years old, and she was too old to go to Europe. So she decided, she did not give up. She decided to see what else she could do. And she took a leave of absence from her teaching from the University of Georgia and went to New York. The University of Columbia had given space in their basement for a room that will be used for those who were going to war, to stop by, talk, etc. It was kind of a social affair. And so she became very much involved with that, helping others as much as she could. She was a very good listener. She understood the war, and she understood what they had to face. Many of these were young men who really did not understand, and she was not going to tell them. That the day of November 9th, 1918, there was an international conference in the evening, and sometime in the morning a soldier came to her office and left on her desk an issue of a magazine called Ladies' Home Journal with a marked page. When she came back, she saw that, and she turned to that page and she saw a poem that she was very familiar with, called In Flanders Fields. She read the poem, but the last 6 lines made a tremendous impact on her. She said that she heard voices, and she decided to express her feelings by writing them down, which became her poem. And this is the poem that Moina Michaels was inspired to write after she read the poem In Flanders Fields. We shall keep the faith. Oh, you who sleep in Flanders Fields, sleep sweet to rise now anew. We cut the torch you threw, and holding high, we keep the faith with all who died. We cherish too the poppy red that grows on fields where valor's led. It seems to signal to the skies that blood of hero never dies, but lends a luster to the red of the flower that blooms above the dead in Flanders Fields. And now the torch and poppy red we wear in honor of our dead. Fear not that ye have died for naught. We will teach the lesson that ye wrote in Flanders Fields. A few minutes later, she had a delegation of 3 individuals who came to her office, and they offered her $10 because of the work that she has done by beautifying and making the environment pleasant for them to come. And she decided that she was going to use that money and buy the puppy that had so much meaning now to her. And she did. She went to many stores. They didn't have it, but one store did. The name was Wanamaker's, which was a store that was created in Philadelphia and then later on came to New York. And that evening, she shared those 4-petal, very red puppies, and these ones were made out of silk and not out of paper. A few days later, as we know, it was the end of the war. So this happened on November 9th, and November 11th, as we know, it was declared the end of the war. So after I learned about Joe McCrae, his contribution to the poem, and then Moina Michaels, seldom you hear her passion for this country, her love for this country. I realized how important what she did was to not only wear the poppy as a remembrance for those who made such sacrifices, but also an income for the veterans who came back, who many of them did not have jobs. Some of them came with physical difficulties. And by being able to not only create these flowers, but also by selling them, it gave an income to them. And it made them feel good. Also, in a way, it was like a physical therapy, because those that had issues with their hands, they were able to use those hands. And it was a way of physical therapy. So going to the beginning, I became more and more sure that I wanted to be involved in something that will make a difference, even if it was a small difference, and that is to honor those that died and honor those who are alive by bringing money and being able to use that money to help the veterans and also the families. And in Lexington, we have Post 3007, who has given me the okay for the flower that I created, which is different from the others. And that flower also has the 375 names of each of the soldiers that have participated. Lexington was extremely generous and kind and understanding of what the value of freedom is. And when the population was less than 6,000 individuals, there were 373 individuals that came to a country that they were not familiar with in conditions that they never even thought of. Out of those 373 individuals, there were 9 women who participated. There were 3 clergymen from different churches, and there was 1 physician. So if you purchase one of these poppies, the remembrance poppy, not the body poppy, because in order to call it a body poppy, you have to be a Veteran of War Award, and they have the right to do that. Mine doesn't have a name except it's a remembrance. It remembers those who have died and those who have participated in Lexington. The monies will go directly to them. And the other project that I came up with is to celebrate with wreaths. But these are different wreaths. They are wreaths that are everlasting. They are painted on an indoor-outdoor plywood. They are treated in the proper way that they can be exposed outside. But if you are not interested, Memorial Day or Veterans Day to do that, then you can have them at home. They all are signed by each of the artists. There are 8 artists that are involved in this project. They are dated. So those who become the owners of these plaques, they will know exactly when they were designed. And also it has a name of the individual that they are honoring. And for that, we will have a silent auction for the first wreath. Is a 14-inch wooden wreath/plaque, which was designed by Carol Camillo, and we call it the Remembrance Poppy. It is signed by Carol in the back, dated, and it honors as a memory of Ralph Coolidge. The second one is also 14-inch, and the artist is Mary McDonald. And we call it in Flanders Field. It really interprets the poem quite beautifully. As you can see, it has a wonderful line of poppies and the field and the horizon. And that honors Joseph Daly, who actually happens to have a nephew who still lives in Lexington.
Okay, go ahead.
The third wreath is designed and created by Barbara Lucas. It's also 14-inch. It's called The Day After. You can see the sky is brighter, and she interprets the poppy beautifully by not only showing you the 4 petals, but also the capsules, which contain 60,000 seeds.
Who is it honoring?
And it's honoring Stanley Hill, a highly decorated soldier.
Whenever you're ready.
The fourth one is also 14-inch. The artist is Emily Passman. And as you can see the lines of the stems, we call it the Poppy's Blow, and it's a memory of Samuel Lassoff. These are 4 of the smaller wreaths. They are 12-inch. And the first one, the artist is Jean Hart. It's called the Poppy Wreath, and as you can see, the beautiful image of a wreath that she has created. It's signed and dated, and it honors Timothy McDonald. The second of the 12 is by Christina Burvell. It's called Spiral of Remembrance, and it honors William Martin. Third of the 12 is by Lynn Jensen. It's called Poppies, and is memory of Aaron Reddy. The fourth one and last one is, again, a 12-inch, is by Lydia Vukovic, and is a memory of John Love. And it's called Poppies 2. For the poppies, I have delegated them to friends, and my wish is that each community, each section of Lexington will be able to have someone that will be able to own a poppy and a name of the individual that they're honoring. And so right now I have 10 friends who have accepted, and they're given 10 poppies in a package. But I need a few more. And the suggested price is $5. So you will get this package that will have the poppy and the name, and a little felt heart with a pin, so you can pin it on if you plan to wear it. And please do wear it on November 11th as a sign and a symbol that you are remembering those who have made serious sacrifices for freedom. Once I saw that there was interest in making this humble flower, I turned to my husband George and I asked him whether he had any information on how many people have participated. And he did have some information, which was a list from the Armory in Concord. But very quickly we realized that there were many more, and so 3 other lists came to that list, and so from the total of 4 lists, a master list was created. And once that was created, we realized that there were 373 individuals that had participated. So it was very easy now for me to decide what I was going to do. I was going to have 373 poppies, and I also was going to have 3 different kinds, in the sense that I wanted to make a distinction between the 9 women that participated and the 3 chaplains that participated and the others. And so the difference was in the center, the 373 the majority has a black center, and those that represented the 9 women had a chartreuse center, and the others had a medium-sized green center. Having worked with little children, age 4 and 5, I know that some of the things can be applied to adults, and if you're trying to create a large quantities, you don't want a project that is complicated. So I had to figure out how to create this simple flower, 4-petal leaf flower, in a way where there will be no glue and very few materials. So what I did is I came up with red crepe paper, which is very important because this poppy is very red, and then color for the center, which is black combined with green. It had to have a wire that will be safe. That meant that the wire had to be covered. And then figuring out how to mass produce this. And so I measure a 7.5 piece of crepe paper, and then I folded it. It was folded once and then twice, and once it was folded twice, then it was opened up with scissors. Once it was opened up with scissors, it was folded once again, and then it was cut around, which once I opened it, it gave me 4 lovely petals. And after I had the 4 lovely petals, then it was time to create the center, where again that measurement of 7.5 to 8 came, and so that's my stem. And then I took the black and a dark green, and I folded it, and then I fringed it, and that will create the center of the puppy. The wire was turned into a lovely hook, and then it was inserted and then squished the center. And so let me show you how this works. Although I folded it already, so it's not going to work properly, but I will try my best. And so you squish it, you turn it, and then you start inserting the petals around. So you have 1, and then the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th, and you come up with this.
And then you repeat 372 more times.
I had one workshop with 6, and then I had 2 other workshops with 2 friends, and I had one individual who paid visits often and took these small pieces of crepe home, and then she will come and present her finished product. So that was the beginning. Then the story came, well, how are we going to market this so it will be safe? And we still have those names that we want to honor. So again, the idea came that each puppy, as it represents an individual, it will have the name spelled out, and it will say in honor. And that was not enough, because I thought, well, we need to package this in such a way that it will be safe to travel and safe to keep. So I thought, okay, it needs to be packaged again. And then how are people going to wear it? So I thought, if they coil the wire and they have a little red heart with a gold pin, they can pin it on. And so that works for both women and men who do not like to put the pin on, so they can just put it in their lapel. And so that is the story of how this project started, from a very simple piece of crepe paper, 7.5 inches long, to folding it many times, to cutting it, to creating a center with another color, to placing the petals around, and then after all the petals were placed around, then the remaining tail that you have, you coil this around the 4 petals so it stays in, no glue required, and the finished product is right here, a very simple red puppy.